And we are back with another one. I am the Mysterious Black Bandit. Welcome to the #1 true crime / tragic events channel on YouTube. Y'all go ahead and do your boy a favor and hit that like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications for your boy. I don't know why some of y'all be acting like that like button costs money. Help your boy out. No, but all seriousness, help your boy out and hit that like button. Now that that's out the way, let me ask y'all a question. Have y'all ever been in a situation where you and your ex broke up, but in his or her mind, y'all really didn't, so that person wouldn't allow you to start talking or dating anyone else? Well, in today's video, we will discuss a case similar to that, but what this individual did was way over the top. Now, let's get into this story. Chana Brown was a 35-year-old single mother who was once married to a councilman named Hakeem Brown that ran an unsuccessful campaign for mayor. Now, there was something about the type of men that was attracted to Chana. They were either very controlling or had a very bad temperament or both. While they were married, Chana's mother had the police sent to her house for a welfare check, and when they got there, he described seeing a woman who was like an abused dog that just cowers all the time, and she had bruises under her eye, a cut earlobe with dry blood, and a swollen cheek. So there were allegations that he was abusive and controlling. It was also stated that Hakeem imposed a set of rules of marriage for Chana to follow, which included do what I tell you to do, cannot talk to any other man, and also had to be submissive and trust all his decisions without having her own opinion. Allegedly, to escape Hakeem's abuse and control, Chana and their child fled California, choosing to settle in Florida to start a new life. Once she got there, she ended up finishing her bachelor's degree and also took a job that she loved. Many of those that were close to her said that this was the happiest they had seen her, and she was on her way to going back to get her master's. Now, while she was living in Florida, she met Kenyatta Bellamy, who was between the age of 49 and 50 at the time, which was almost 15 years older than Chana. Kenyatta was from New York and had a pretty bad criminal track record. Between 1993 and 2001, while he was living in New York, he racked up a criminal history that included several felonies and misdemeanors for manslaughter, robbery, assault, harassment, possession and sales of marijuana, larceny, and weapon charges. So I'm pretty sure he tried to relocate to Florida to escape that life he was living and to have a new start. Now, it isn't stated when Kenyatta and Chana first met, but I'm assuming they had been together for a while since her 8-year-old son called him dad, and they both lived in Kenyatta's home in Davenport, Florida. Now, for a while, the couple appeared to be happy and everything seemed to be going pretty smooth, but Kenyatta couldn't leave the streets alone and found himself in trouble again with the law. On September 28, 2017, Kenyatta was federally indicted on charges of embezzlement of theft of public funds. However, before he was sentenced to 2 years in a federal prison, he was arrested for a DUI manslaughter and vehicular homicide on January 19, 2018. Now, allegedly, Kenyatta knew that he was going to be locked up for a while, so he told Chana to go ahead and stay in his home in Davenport and gave her money to pay all the bills while he was away in prison. Now, by April 17, 2018, Kenyatta was already in prison for the theft charge, but he was scheduled to appear for his pre-trial in the DUI manslaughter case. When he didn't appear, his bond was revoked, but his attorney argued that the only reason he didn't show up was because he was already in federal prison. So the court went through all the records and found out that this was actually the case. So they were required to offer him a bond. So the state agreed that once he completes his federal sentence, he will be entitled for a bond, which was set at $3,000. On March 24, 2020, Kenyatta bonded out of the Osceola County Jail and returned to his home in Davenport on Royal Ridge Drive to greet Chana and her son. But when he arrived, he discovered that she had another man living in his home. Instead of him freaking out and catching another charge, Kenyatta just leaves to gather himself. Now, on March 27, 2022, just 3 days later, Kenyatta decided to go over to the house to pressure wash the driveway, but when he walked inside the house, he heard something that sounded like a man and female being intimate. So he slowly creeps into the bedroom and finds out that Chana and Donovan Morgan were in his bed having relations. With disgust and anguish, Kenyatta runs out the house and calls his mother, who lived in Miami. He tells her the situation he was in and that he needed to get away. So he asked his mom if it was okay for him to take a bus to see her. Now, during this time, the C virus was at its peak and just about everything was shut down. So when he tried to get a bus ticket, he wasn't able to. Now, what he just allegedly discovered on top of not being able to leave, Kenyatta loses his mind. Pacing back and forth, not knowing what to do with himself, he grabs a hammer that was inside the garage, then walked back into the house to confront Chana. Once back in the house, Chana approaches Kenyatta trying to calm him down, but as soon as she got close enough, Kenyatta began hitting her multiple times with the hammer. Donovan, who was sitting there witnessing this, rushed over to try to help Chana, but Kenyatta started wailing on him as well. Now, when Donovan wouldn't stop resisting, Kenyatta then grabs a kitchen knife that was on the bedroom floor and proceeds to stab him repeatedly until he failed. In a rage, Kenyatta then picks up a razor blade, walked over to where Donovan was laying, and started slashing him in the throat multiple times. Realizing what he just did, Kenyatta rushed into the bathroom and washed all the blood off of him, then put on clean clothes. Now, he had to come up with a plan to try to cover all this up, and this is when he walks into the garage and spots a full can of gasoline. He then grabs it and walks back into the room where Chana and Donovan's bodies were laying and began dousing the whole room, including them, with the gas. Kenyatta then lights the room on fire and closed the door behind him. Then he walks into the living room where Chana's son, who had been there the whole time watching television. This finally made Kenyatta come to his senses, and he goes and retrieves a fire extinguisher to put out the fire. Then him and Chana's son packed their things and left the house in Chana's car. Now, after driving for a while, Kenyatta decides to go over a relative's house and ask them if they could watch the little man while he went and handled some business. Later on that day, he then goes out to eat with a female cousin, and while they were eating, she could kind of tell there was something wrong with Kenyatta. So she asked him what was going on. Kenyatta, who couldn't get this gruesome scene out of his head, tells her that he was upset that another man had taken his girlfriend and was living in his house. Now, after dinner, they were on their way back to his home in Davenport, but Kenyatta just tells him to drop him off at a convenience store because he didn't want to go back home while he was still upset. So she drops him off and leaves, but later on that night, she decided to go back to his house to make sure everything was okay. When she arrived, she walked up to the front door and knocked on it a few times, but as she was knocking, she noticed a strong smoke odor coming from the inside. In a panic, she begins banging on the door to try to get someone to come answer it. But after a while of no response, she did exactly what anyone else would do and called the police. Around 10 p.m. that same night, the Polk County Sheriffs arrived and burst through the door only to discover a recently extinguished fire coming from the master bedroom. As they walked in the room to make sure the fire was completely out, the police discovered that this was not only a house fire, but it was also a crime scene. 35-year-old Chana Brown and 28-year-old Donovan Morgan were lying on the floor deceased with burn marks and bruises all over their body. Now, shortly after the house was taped up and the bodies were taken in for an autopsy, the Polk County deputies learned that Kenyatta had just bonded out of jail 3 days ago, so they immediately located him and took him in for questioning. In the interrogation room, the first thing they noticed was a blister on his ankle. So they asked him, "How'd you get that?" Kenyatta didn't waste any time and confessed to everything. He told them that he accidentally burned himself while setting fire to the bedroom. Then he tells them that the first time that he was arrested in 2015, he told his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend to stay in his house while he was in jail and also left her money to pay all the bills. He said he had no idea she allowed another man to move into his house. So while he was outside the house pressure washing and went in to grab a few items, he witnessed them having relations and this infuriated him, but he kept his composure. Now, when he tried to get that bus ticket and found out that they were shut down due to the virus, this is what caused him to snap. With this information, 50-year-old Kenyatta Bellamy was booked into the Polk County Jail and is being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, arson, and tampering with evidence. The state attorney's office will be seeking the death penalty against Kenyatta, but until his court date, he will remain in the Polk County Jail without bail. And that will bring this horrible video to an end. And what do y'all think about this one? Looking back at some of the articles I read about this case, it seemed like there was a lot of unanswered questions. People feel like this awful tragedy should have never happened, because how did a man with such a bad and lengthy criminal history be granted bail in the first place? One of the sheriffs stated if this suspect would have remained in jail where he belonged, these two victims would still be alive today. This would be Kenyatta's third separate event where he has caused someone's death, and a lot of people feel that somebody needs to be held accountable. Well, y'all go ahead and let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you enjoy videos like this, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any of these videos. I hope you all had a wonderful day, and until next time, stay mysterious, my friend.